Why German annexed Alsace Lorraine, 1871 to 1918. What led to the Battle of Mulhouse? What happens when you forcibly invite someone to live in your house, change their language, mock their religion, wreck their economy, and then accidentally insult them during roll call? Welcome to Alsace Lorraine, Germany's imperial roommate from hell. In 1871, Germany walked away from the Franco-Prussian War like a victor at a poker table, scooping up territories and setting down stakes. But in Alsace-Lorraine, this wasn't nation-building, it was nation-bickering. For nearly 5 decades, this borderland brewed rebellion, resentment, and riots, all leading up to a war that would shake the world. How did language lessons become acts of resistance? Why did one officer's mouth ignite nationwide protests? What transformed a saber insult into an international showdown? And most crucially, how did all of this trigger France's dramatic re-entry in 1914's Battle of Mulhouse? Join us as we dive into the fiery tug-of-war of identity, politics, and power that made Alsace-Lorraine the ultimate ticking time bomb of World War I. Once upon a time, in the post-Franco-Prussian War haze of 1871, the German Empire, freshly minted and feeling rather smug, decided to annex Alsace-Lorraine. Picture Germany as a newly crowned monarch who just won a chess match and decided to swipe a couple of pawns off the board for good measure. The Treaty of Frankfurt sealed the deal, and Alsace-Lorraine became the empire's awkward new roommate, officially dubbed the Reichsland Alsace-Lotharingen. The locals? Let's just say they weren't exactly popping champagne. Imagine a region where people spoke German, but felt French in their bones. Alsace-Lorraine was a cultural smoothie, German dialects swirled with French flair. But Berlin wasn't having any of that bilingual nonsense. Germanization 101. Schools switched to German, French newspapers got the censorship axe, and even street signs got a Teutonic facelift. The choice. Locals were told, become German or pack your bags. Over 50,000 chose the latter, heading to France or Switzerland like rebellious teenagers fleeing a strict household. Cultural resistance. Despite the linguistic pressure, many Alsatians clung to their French identity like a vintage beret in a snowstorm. Religion, the eternal pot stirrer. The German Empire was mostly Protestant, but Alsace-Lorraine was a Catholic stronghold. Enter Otto von Bismarck, who decided to pick a fight with the Pope. Because why not? Kulturkampf. Bismarck's culture struggle aimed to curb Catholic influence. Catholic newspapers were censored, and clergy were treated like suspicious characters in a noir film. Confessional divide. Catholics were poorer, less educated, and less likely to land cushy jobs. The divide wasn't just spiritual, it was economic and social. The fallout. The region became a battleground of faith, with Catholics feeling like second-class citizens in their own land. Alsace-Lorraine had a booming textile industry. Think looms, spindles, and enough fabric to clothe a small army. But under German rule, things got complicated. Industrial competition. Local factories now had to compete with industrial giants from Berlin and beyond. It was like sending your homemade jam to a supermarket shelf next to Heinz. Economic friction. Integration into the German economy was rocky. Trade policies shifted, and resentment brewed like strong coffee in a cracked mug. Imperial control. As an imperial territory, Alsace-Lorraine was ruled directly from Berlin. Autonomy? Not in the early years. Locals had about as much say as a cat at a dog show. In late 1913, Alsace-Lorraine was simmering like a pot of sauerkraut left unattended. The German Empire, still trying to digest this spicy French-flavored territory it swallowed back in 1871, is about to get a taste of rebellion with a side of scandal. In the quaint town of Saverne, nestled in Alsace, a young Prussian officer named Lieutenant Günther von Forstner decided to spice up military training by calling Alsatian recruits whacks, a slur meaning slackers or troublemakers. Not exactly the motivational speech of the century. But wait, there's more. He offered 10 marks to any soldier who stabbed a whacks if attacked. That's right, cash for stabbing. HR would not approve. The press got wind of it, and the locals exploded in protest. Think pitchforks, placards, and passive-aggressive pastries. The military responded by arresting civilians, including judges and prosecutors, and locking them in a coal cellar overnight. Because nothing says justice like soot and humiliation. The Kaiser was off hunting, literally, while his empire was metaphorically on fire. When he finally tuned in, he backed his officers like a dad defending his bratty kids at a PTA meeting. The Reichstag issued a censure vote against Chancellor Bethmann Hollweg, but it was about as effective as yelling at a cloud. The press had a field day. The Kaiser's reputation, already wobbling, took another nosedive. Lieutenant Forstner later slashed a shoemaker with his saber for laughing at him. The court called it self-defense. The public called it seriously. The Zabern affair exposed the deep cracks in the empire's relationship with Alsace Lorraine. The locals felt alienated, insulted, and increasingly rebellious. And just when things couldn't get more tense, the Zabern incident wasn't just a scandal. It was a symbol. It showed that Alsace-Lorraine was never truly integrated into the German Empire. The locals felt like outsiders, and the empire treated them like unruly guests. Fast forward to August 1914. When France came knocking, many Alsatians saw it as a homecoming. The cheers in Mulhouse weren't just for the French army. They were for a chance to reclaim identity, dignity, and autonomy. The world's about to go full World War, and France is itching to reclaim Alsace-Lorraine like a long-lost heirloom. France launched Plan Sweat, a bold offensive to retake Alsace and Lorraine. General Louis Bonneau led the French 7th Corps into Alsace like a man on a mission, with bayonets and bravado. August 7, French troops entered Mulhouse to cheers from locals who still had Vive la France stitched into their hearts. August 8–10, German reinforcements arrived, and the French were pushed out in a chaotic retreat. Bonneau was promptly fired. Joffre didn't do second chances. August 18–19, French forces returned, captured Altkirch, and engaged in brutal house-to-house fighting. They held Mulhouse briefly, but German counterattacks and bad news from other fronts forced another withdrawal. French, 4,000 killed, 2,500 captured. Germans, 3,000 killed, 3,000 captured. The battle was dubbed Little Verdun, a grim nickname for a grim stalemate. Of 350,000 Alsatian-Lorrainer conscripts, 17,000 deserted to join the French army. Thousands fled to neutral Switzerland, preferring fondue over forced service. The German High Command, fearing sabotage, sent many Alsatians to the Eastern Front or stuck them in logistics. Anti-war sentiment simmered. One steelworker shouted, "Down with the war, down with Prussia, vive la France, merde la Prusse," and got 6 months in prison. By war's end, 2,389 prosecutions had been made for anti-German attitudes. That's a lot of whispering turned into court cases. With Germany defeated, France reclaimed Alsace-Lorraine. For a brief, chaotic moment, the region declared itself the Alsace-Lorraine Soviet Republic, a political twist that even Lenin might have raised an eyebrow at. It didn't last, but it proved one thing. Alsace-Lorraine was never just a border. It was a battleground of identity, loyalty, and resistance. Coming up next, the Ardennes trap, fog, forest, and a fatal miscalculation. 2 generals, 1 forest, and a colossal misjudgment that changed the face of World War I. French General Lanrezac hesitates. German General von Hausen charges in. Neither expects the Ardennes to become a graveyard of illusions. How did strategy turn into tragedy? Why did both armies plunge blindly into the fog? What made this battle a blueprint for the horrors ahead? If you've ever wondered how ego, miscommunication, and a forest full of secrets can spark catastrophe, you're in for a gripping ride. Subscribe now and tap the bell so you don't miss the twists, turns, and tangled trees of the Ardennes trap. Let's uncover history's mistakes so we don't repeat them.